My name is Andressa, and it's a pleasure to me to stay here today talking for all of you one more time, because this is the third time I've come here as a speaker after I graduated. Thank you for this and for the invitation. Today, I will talk with you a little bit about the incredible role of the APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself and then I will start. So I will share my screen on presentation mode, okay? Just a minute here. So I'm Andressa, I'm a pharmacist, I'm 29 years old, I'm from Cascavel. I've graduated at UniOeste in 2013, and then I've concluded the master's degree on the same university in 2017. And for almost 4 years, I've worked at Prate Dona Duzzi on regulatory affairs, with regulatory documentations from APIs. And finally, I'm technical documentation specialist at Axê Laboratórios. And again, my main experience is with technical documentation of APIs as well. Here, I have a picture of the company that I work for. It's a great company to work, by the way. Axê is a 100% national company located in São Paulo, Brazil, and with all the subsidiary companies, São Paulo, Paraná, Goiás, e Pernambuco. In total, Axê has about 5,000 employees. Well, for today, I prepared this follow agenda to talk with you about APIs and some general aspects, about current scenario of APIs in Brazil, about APIs and challenges related to them, and about new RDCs and some regulatory advantages. So in order to start, we must understand what those API means. API is the active pharmaceutical ingredient that is the main compound constitutes the final drug product, which you will find at the pharmacy. And then it means the API is the responsible for the action in the final product. So briefly speaking, there are two main kinds of APIs, the chemical ones, chemically obtained, and also from vegetal extraction, which is used for phytotherapeutic products. Concerning the origin of the APIs in the world, it is a fact that most of the compounds are from India and from China, and also from some other countries from Europe. But a small quantity, less than 10% of the APIs consumed and used in Brazil, is internally obtained. And why does it happen? Why only a small amount is internally produced by Brazil? Usually, the cost of the raw materials and other ingredients, case starting materials, some reagents, these compounds are high costs, and usually this material also must be imported. The cost of manpower also is cheaper in those countries, and an important aspect is about the structure of the building. For produce this kind of compounds, APIs, usually is necessary a great structure for the buildings. So based on this, current Brazilian companies still prefer to produce the final product only. But in face of this scenario, Brazil have some goals set to a long-term goals in order to improve the supply chain of APIs and then avoid external dependency of their production. So we can mention increasing investments on the API production, increasing manufacturing facility sizes, and increase the investments on R&D, research and development areas. So based on this, it will be possible to reduce external dependency of the supply chain and reduces also impact concerning dollar value. Concerning the challenges related to the API chain, the API manufacturers, as well as all kind of enterprises company, always wants to reduce its costs and increases the earnings. And then it's common some strategic changes applied by API manufacturer. For example, stop manufacturing process of the API when the product is not more interesting from the manufacturer. Change the manufacturing address when the API manufacturer wants to increase the size of the company. Change of the manufacturing process when the API manufacturer wants to optimize, wants to change the process, and details I will explain after. And that's why I put here this phrase where it says, changes and improvements are common and necessary in the pharmaceutical industry because this is a real and common scenario to us. Talking specifically about changes on API manufacturing process, the most common changes practiced by API manufacturers are improvement on manufacturing process when they want to remove compounds, for example, from some reagent, some solvent of the process, especially when the API manufacturer, for example, sees some compound which can pose some kind of toxicity to the API, and then the API manufacturer intended to remove this compound, to change some reagent, some solvent in the process. Here, I put an example of a simple manufacturing process, which has reagents, solvents, and then, for example, a change on this manufacturing process is when the manufacturer wants to exclude some reagents, some change for another one, from include some reagents in the process which was not used until this time, to exclude some solvent, to include some solvent, to change some solvent, to exclude some manufacturing step of the synthesis. These are some examples of the changes the API manufacturer are always performing in the process in order to reduce its costs and optimize the process, saving resources, saving money, saving time, saving manpower, and also improving the API quality. Another important point to include here is that us as a pharmaceutical company, we receive daily notifications by API manufacturer informing about changes they are proposing on our manufacturing process. So we usually evaluate the changes proposed by the API manufacturer. We try to understand the changes based on the current RDCs, the current law vigent in Brazil, and we send to the API manufacturer the most safe and the most correct regulatory way to do this new regularization. Here, just as a curiosity, I would like to comment with you about the impact which the pandemic situation brought to the API chain. On this period of the pandemic situation, we have the demand of the drug products, APIs, reagents, standards increased in all of the world. And then the materials have the availability reduced. High demand causes upper costs of the compounds, and then we also had the delay on delivery of APIs and materials during the pandemic situation. And this is just a curiosity I'd like to share with you in order to explain how the pandemic situation also caused impact on this scenario of APIs as we are talking here about. Here, I'd like only to give you some examples of about the documentation necessary to do a register, a new register, a post-registration to Anvisa. Some of the necessary documentations must be provided to the agents. Information about manufacturing process, information about ingredients, equipments, quality control, method of analysis, specifications, information about process validation, about bioequivalence study, information about packing materials and stability study performed in the API, and of course, detailed information about the APIs and excipients. API is the main information I would like to share with you right now. So until now, we as pharmaceutical industry have the RDC 73 published in 2016 as basis for any kind of change in the process, which means changes in the APIs, excipients, method of analysis, specification, pack material, anyway, any kind of change proposed by the API manufacturer or the drug product manufacturer must to be sent to Anvisa based on this RDC 73. But at this year, 2020, Anvisa issued 3 new RDCs posing an important regulatory framework in Brazil. Since these new RDCs intend to harmonize the regulatory adequations as per already is done by another agencies as EDQM, for example, in Europe, and FDA as well. These new RDCs pose some new nomenclatures different of the previous scenario we are using here. Here, the biggest example of the new nomenclatures in the new RDCs are DIFA and CADIFA. But for you, what those DIFA and CADIFA means? It's new nomenclatures in Brazil from now. So DIFA is the Drug Master File document, which is the technical documentation issued by the API manufacturer. This documentation must include details about manufacturing process of the API, manufacturing address, quality control, method of analysis, packing material, stability study performed by the API manufacturer. Any kind of information about the API must to be part of this drug master file, which based on the new RDCs published 2020, will not be named as drug master file. Now the new name must be DIFA. The documentation is the same, just this will be the new nomenclature for the documentation. And what does CADIFA means? CADIFA is a letter of suitability issued by Anvisa to the API manufacturer based on submission of DIFA, which is the information about the API, plus some administrative documents also issued by API manufacturer. Then Anvisa will evaluate this documentation, drug master file plus administrative documents. If all information is okay, Anvisa will issue a CADIFA, which is a letter approving this API to be commercialized and used in Brazil. And which kind of information is contained on this CADIFA, on this certificate, on this letter issued by Anvisa? Here we can mention some examples as number and issue date of the CADIFA certificate, API name, DCB number, API CAS number, company name and address of API holder, name and address of API manufacturing site, API specification, API packing material, information about storage condition, retest or expiry date of API. It's a lot of information, but it's important to highlight that CADIFA will not be issued by Anvisa to the API manufacturer if it was detected any non-compliance of GMP conditions. So this is a mandatory requirement to a CADIFA certificate. Here, I will quickly talk about each one of these RDCs because there are many details involved on each one of them, and this will be interested only to API manufacturer, only to drug product manufacturer, but anyway, I will describe here quickly just for a quickly description of each one of the RDCs. So for RDC 359, this RDC is most directed to the API manufacturer, and the law inform about the new nomenclatures DIFA and CADIFA, inform about how to get CADIFA and administrative way to get CADIFA, the step-by-step, information about suspension and cancellation of CADIFA, information about CADIFA life cycle, and another details related to the API for the API manufacturer. About the RDC 361, this is most directed to the manufacturer of drug product, which means the pharma company. So this RDC inform how to link the drug product dossier, which means the documentation from the final product, to the CADIFA, which is necessary in this new regulatory scenario to link the documentation from the drug product to the CADIFA. So this information is informed on this RDC. And also clarify how to perform variations in the API in the drug product when the API manufacturer has or hasn't CADIFA certificate. And finally, the RDC 362 inform mainly about GMP certification, which must be done by Anvisa, which means Anvisa will audit each of the company who intends to have your API registered here in Brazil and used here in Brazil. Here, I quickly included for show for you how the RDC proposed the changes. Here we have changes of the DIFA with no CADIFA if the API holder still don't have the certificate yet. And here, in order to show you how it's possible to find in the new RDC the changes of DIFA with CADIFA. Here we can find the categories of the changes, the conditions, the documentation should be submitted to Anvisa in order to regularize each one of these changes, and also the regulatory way to obtain this kind of changing that is proposed. Here is important to inform. There there are many information, as I told earlier. There are many information details, regulatory work involved on it, and the new laws also proposes a transitional period in order to allow the companies, the pharma companies, to make all the necessary regularizations. Okay, and about this transitional period, I put here a timeline in order to help you to understand exactly how to proceed on the changes must to be performed for your next submission process you intend to do in Brazil to Anvisa. Here we have a lot of details, data, which are very specific for regulatory affairs area, for quality assurance, for R&D areas. So I want to describe more details, but if you have any doubt how to proceed, I think based on this slide, it's possible to understand better concerning the kind of API you are looking for and the deadlines of the projects and data which CADIFA process will be mandatory. This is the main information of this slide, and it will be available if you must to check it after the presentation. Here I included some general comments about the best way to understand the transitional period for each kind of the project. Portfolio products, which are the products you already have the register, the products which already are in the market, and also new developments, which are the new products and projects you are developing on your company. So for portfolio products, it's important to inform this new regularization by new RDC is not mandatory right now, but is really recommended. For portfolio products, the pharma company has the opportunity to ask for CADIFA when a major change is proposed by the API manufacturer. What we can understand by a major change, for example, when the API manufacturer wants to change something in the route of synthesis, wants to include another source, wants to change some compounds, wants to include new solvents, the changes will be classified as a major change. So this is the best chance of the company to ask for CADIFA. Another opportunity for the portfolio products is when the API manufacturer gets CADIFA from another pharma company. For example, the API manufacturer gets CADIFA and say you, hi, I get CADIFA certificate. Would you like to link my CADIFA certificate to your dossier? So we, as a pharmaceutical company, can take the opportunity to do this link, to link the CADIFA certificate get by the API manufacturer to the dossier of the final product. Então, these are some of the opportunities to ask for CADIFA for the products already are in the market. But we also have the new developments, and the main data which must to be considered concerning this transitional period is that it will be mandatory from October 1st of 2023. But as I told earlier, you can check here this table of transitional period for understand here the data which each will be mandatory, and another transitional period is possible to work. Okay, and here we would like to understand with you what are the advantages you will find if you ask for CADIFA. Many manufacturers ask us requiring, so why I need to ask for CADIFA? What are the benefits, the advantages? So the importance of this regularization is because it will be possible to harmonize with the regulatory adequations by EDQM, for example, by the FDA. Anvisa is going to open the doors for more technical rationales. So Anvisa will accept more discussions, more technical discussions, so it will be great. Fewer studies developed for both companies. So based on this, less documentation will be necessary to provide, and then faster regularizations by pharma company will be possible. Fewer costs for regularization, and then quality of the process will be ensured by the Anvisa, since it will be possible to link the process with the CADIFA certificate. Of course, there are another advantages, but these were those ones I chose it for explain for you right now. And then, concluding the point of view here, if we have Anvisa issued CADIFA to the API manufacturer and the risk assessment be presented by the pharma company, then some important changes can be immediately implemented or quickly resolved by the pharma company, which in my opinion is the biggest advantage, the biggest benefit to this new regulatory framework posed by Anvisa to Brazil. What are the additional benefits we found on this new regulatory scenario? So we have this scenario of a good performance from Anvisa, because in front of the road scenario, Anvisa is going to harmonize your definitions, your way to work with EDQM, with FDA, which is a great scenario to the pharma company. We, as pharma company, have the discussions and technical rationales very improved with the API manufacturer, which has stricted the partnership between pharma company and the API manufacturer, which is a good scenario to us. Let me see which more information I can share with you about it. There is a lot of information about this, but now, concluding my presentation, I'd like to comment with you about some materials produced by Fernanda Vector, my colleague for Katashi Laboratórios. This girl really likes to prepare materials to help the partners to regularize themselves on this new current scenario of new roads in Brazil. Here, there are some of the videos she made about this scenario I told you today, but on YouTube, you can find another informative and interesting videos about other relevant subjects to the pharmaceutical companies and API manufacturers made by Fernanda Vector. So I really recommend you to access their channel on YouTube through this link, see these videos, and you will understand better about this new scenario of regulatory in Brazil, and many information you can use on your company can be found through these materials. How can I get CADIFA? Have you heard about these new regulations in Brazil? It's very interesting. I really recommend you. So this subject is a difficult subject because it's new in Brazil. It's new for us, but we must to run in order to find the deadline we have, okay? Being this, all I have for you today. I'd like to thank you for attention on this presentation. Here below there are my emails, my personal contact, my professional contact. In case you have more doubts, in case you want to change some experiences, I'll be happy if I can help you on something. And I'd like to thank you one more time. Bye bye and have a nice event.